Hey, did you know why helmets are designed to break? I'm sure by this point we've all seen the videos circulating around the internet of a man testing motorcycle helmets by smacking them down onto vertical metal girders or slamming them with a heavy object, watching them shatter, and then demonstrating that the helmet he sells does not break into pieces like the others. This unbreakable status is touted as a selling point of the device, but as a wise man once said, redesigning a technology without considering why it was designed the way it was is a very bad idea. So at last, this brings us to a critical question. Which helmet is better? Is the indestructibility of the helmet a blessing and innovation, or a curse due to mistaken engineering design? Let's get into it. To get started, let's talk about what happens during a crash. Whether it's a massive car accident or falling off a bicycle, the major cause of damage in any collision is momentum, or rather, the rapid change in momentum that happens during an impact. Momentum is a measurement of the power of mass with velocity, defined by the equation momentum equals the object's mass times the object's velocity. When a collision occurs, there is a change in momentum, also known as an impulse. Impulse is equal to mass times the object's change in velocity, or force times the change in time. Since mass and change in velocity cannot be changed during a collision, this means the energy of the impulse is going to be constant. Once you're going from 60 miles per hour to 0 miles per hour in a car that weighs 1,200 kilograms, nothing can change in that moment, so we have to look elsewhere to reduce the effects of the crash on the object, in this case, the person's skull. That's where the other equation for impulse comes in, force times the change in time. Due to the fact that impulse is constant, that means if we extend the time it takes for the impact to occur, we can reduce the amount of force the skull of our passenger experiences, and this is the exact purpose of crumple zones. Crumple zones in both helmets and cars function the way they do for the same exact reason, to disperse the force and to extend the time of impact, reducing the force the person experiences and saving them a large deal of injury that would occur if these systems were not in place. Just as an extra cool little tidbit, this is how parkour experts can jump from seemingly impossible heights and walk away unscathed. The role they perform in landing is actually a technique that extends the duration of their impact with the ground, reducing the force they experience on their body and saving themselves from some pretty nasty hospital bills. Now that we talked about the fundamental principles behind crumple zones, let's shift back towards the scope of helmets and how they traditionally function. Let's look at a modern motorcycle helmet and how it's designed to function. At its most basic level, the helmet itself is composed of a hard shell outer layer, a large layer of protective padding, and a smaller layer of comfort padding. So what happens during an impact? During a typical motorcycle crash, the helmet is designed to break, dispersing the force into the outer layer to protect your skull. However, it isn't necessarily designed to crumple. Rather, use the force of the impact to crack and break this layer rather than cave it in. Rather, the crumple effect comes more from the protective foam padding on the inside, which firstly takes force to compress, almost like a spring, and secondly extends the time of impact by a few milliseconds. Even though it's a small amount of time, any amount of time can greatly reduce the amount of force that goes into your skull, and allow your brain to decelerate over a longer period of time, possibly preventing concussions, or much worse injury. Moral of the story, wear a helmet kids, it might just save your life. Because of this function, the materials in a motorcycle helmet have to be in top shape to properly prevent a collision. Motorcycle helmets have a typical shelf life of up to 5 years when it comes to natural material degradation, and should always be replaced immediately after a crash or even after a hard enough drop, as the materials will no longer be able to properly protect from a crash. Now that we have this background information, let's revisit the controversial helmets and settle once and for all which is better. So which is it? Are these indestructible helmets a technical marvel or a tremendous mistake? To answer that, let's look to the crush test. Motorcycle helmets are designed to break, that's true, but it's important to note that catastrophic material failure should only happen at higher energy collisions. Motorcycle helmets are designed to protect against high-speed collisions and should be able to absorb a decent amount of force before shattering. Based on the videos, I'd say that the man likely isn't slamming down the crushing implement with the force of a high-speed motorcycle crash. So what does this mean? Is the indestructible helmet the better one? Well, not necessarily. Although probably not equivalent to that of a real crash, the lack of damage caused to the helmet in this video is rather concerning. The helmet should likely have shown some sign of cracking or other structural damage, considering the fact that the other helmets were demolished when put under the same amount of force. This lack of damage reveals that the helmet may not properly break in the event of a real impact, and may cause more harm than good. A true unbreakable helmet only protects itself, as if none of the energy is absorbed through the breaking of the helmet, the energy will go into your skull, breaking that instead. When it comes to the puncture test, however, while this test may make the helmet look very good, it is fundamentally flawed. In this case, we have to consider the very important factor of pressure. Pressure is equal to the force of the collision over the area it's applied to, meaning that the same amount of force can have very different effects on a material based on the area of the collision, which is the key factor here. Motorcycle helmets are designed to deal with force spread over a large area, such as the rider's head crashing into the ground or a vehicle, but are not designed for puncture resistance and small area forces. For example, motorcycle helmets are definitely not bulletproof, no matter what Hollywood might tell you. Movies lied to us again, big surprise, looking at you, High School Musical. The only thing we're all in together is a great deal of pain from exhaustive work and lack of sleep. Where was I? Right, so finally, where does this leave us? Is the helmet good or not? Unfortunately, it isn't really possible to tell. The girder test is a poor test of the helmet's quality, and does not reveal any valuable information about the functionality of the helmet itself. It's like trying to judge a tennis racket for its ability to play badminton. The regular tennis racket versus the TurboFlex tennis racket. Sure, it looks like it should be able to, but that's not what it's designed for, and so that shouldn't be considered when choosing the proper equipment. The crush test, while closer to being an actual test for the helmet, still isn't truly accurate. It's not possible to judge the effectiveness of this helmet with what these tests provide, because as prior stated, this man is likely not subjecting the helmets to conditions present in a true motorcycle crash. If a helmet doesn't properly break in the event of collision, the force of that collision will go through the helmet and into your body, causing damage that could have been avoided had the helmet dispersed the force. While this is true, the in event of collision part isn't truly being tested here, because the amount of force likely isn't comparable to a true motorcycle accident. Motorcycle and bicycle helmets are usually supposed to undergo rigorous testing and certifications to simulate real crash collisions, and properly analyze how they would react in that situation. These videos do not show any of this kind of testing, however, so all we can truly conclude is that the helmet can withstand moderate energy collisions with rebar, and can withstand moderate crush forces from a heavy falling object. At the end of the day, it's important to recognize that all different kinds of helmets are designed to withstand different kinds of stresses and situations. Just as construction helmets are designed to deal with construction-related incidents, motorcycle helmets are designed specifically to protect from motorcycle accidents, and shouldn't be judged based on their ability to protect from other kinds of stresses and forces. All in all, be sure to wear the proper safety equipment no matter what you're doing, because your health and safety should always be the primary concern. Go out and explore the world and the seemingly magical phenomena that exist within, just be sure to do so safely. Well, as always, I've been your host, Andrew Glorioso, and I'll see you all next week. Thanks for watching. P.S. This is kind of just a little unscripted note, but I apologize for my lack of consistent schedule, though it is just the first episode. You see, AP week was just last week, and so it caused my sleep schedule and my work schedule to be entirely filled with studying. From now on, especially over the summer, I'll try my best to stick to the one-a-week routine, and I'm just trying to have a good time, so let's enjoy some science and have a good time together. I'll see you folks in the next one.